Hello everyone! Last week they introduced patch 6.1 and I hope you're all having a ton of fun with the selfie camera and the Blackrock Foundry. Lots of new questions were sent in over at Ask FM and in the comments section, so I think it's time for a new Q&A. I don't really have any updates or news to share for this week, so let's just begin, shall we? Starting off with, hi Nobu, what about Thura? What happened with Broxigar's ex? Is she still alive? Ex from Boris. Boris, let me first explain a little bit about Thura, since some might not even know about her. Thura is Broxigar's niece, and Broxigar was an orcish hero sent back by the bronze dragon Nosdormu to the time of the War of the Ancients. There he helped the Night Elves fight off the Legion, and for his mission they forged a magical axe. Malfurion Stormrage himself, he shaped the axe after the image given to him by Broxigar, and the demigod Cenarius, he placed a magical enchant on the weapon. Let it always swing true, always protect its master. Let it be wielded well for the cause of life and justice. Let it add to the strength of its master and, in turn, let him strengthen it. The weapon, it was perfect, just as Brox imagined it to be, and it was so powerful that Brox was able to use it and wound the Titan Sargeras himself. Broxigar wouldn't survive the war. Sargeras impaled him with his sword, but his heroic deeds were not forgotten. They brought back his weapon to our timeline, and the Red Dragon Quel'thelas, disguised of course, he disguised himself as an orc, he gave it to Thrall, while also explaining what Broxigar had done. Eventually, Thrall's most trusted shaman, he received a dream that the axe, it should go to Thura, to Broxigar's niece, and these events are described in the novel Stormrage. In the book, Malfurion Stormrage, the same one that crafted the weapon, he is trapped within the Emerald Dream, which by this time is turned into the Emerald Nightmare. Xavius, an enemy Malfurion faced multiple times during the War of the Ancients, he was eventually turned into a tree by Malfurion himself. Now Xavius, he found himself empowered by what we presume to be the old god Ner'zhul, and he's holding Malfurion prisoner. They're slowly turning him into a tree now, they're using his powers to corrupt the dream, and Malfurion, he's unable to move, unable to fight, but he is able to manipulate dreams. He sends nightmares to Thura, in which Broxigar is fighting the Legion, and Malfurion stabs him in the back. Thura sees this as betrayal, as something that she must avenge, so her dreams, they are leading her to the betrayer, to Malfurion himself. Like I said, Malfurion was there when they crafted the axe, so he knew about his powers. He knew that if there was anything in the world that could set him free, it would be the Axe of Cenarius. His manipulations eventually got Thura right where he wanted her, and her strike, it broke the magical spells, keeping him in place, and they set him free. In the end of the book, they had to take out Xavius, and to do this they had to take out both of his forms, the one in the Emerald Nightmare and the one in the real world. Thura, she used her axe to strike down Xavius in the dream, while Malfurion assaulted his physical form, and together they removed his corruption. They were unable to completely remove the corruption behind the nightmare, but Malfurion, he sensed that one day they would have to face it. One day this evil power would have to be dealt with. But today was not that day. That's pretty much the end of Thura's story. Last we heard is that she's sent to Teron'gor's and Malfurion's wedding to send Thrall's well wishes for him. As far as I know, she still holds the axe, and perhaps they'll give her a role in the story once it's time to actually deal with the source behind the corruption. This source is presumed to be the old god Ner'zhul, since they feel that his powers come from somewhere beneath Azeroth's oceans, and it's hinted that that's where we'll find this old god. Ner'zhul has already played a story during the Cataclysm. He was the one who was signing Deathwing's paychecks. That's the way that they described it. It's speculated that he also is behind Azshara. So once we do the whole Naga, Ner'zhul, maybe Oceans and Island expansion, I hope that they'll give Thura a part to play. Next question. Hey Noble. What is your opinion on this subject, Calia Menethil? Do you think we will ever see her again? Since, as far as I know, we haven't heard from her since the novel Dave the Dragon, and her fate wasn't really explained. What do you think? Friend or foe? And what could her role be? From Stefan Halt Christiansen. Stefan, Calia Menethil, she is one of those characters that Blizzard simply forgot about, or they never continued her storyline. You're absolutely right. Last we heard about her was during the Day of the Dragon, in which she nearly got married against her will with the Black Dragon Deathwing. Deathwing disguised himself as the human Lord Prester, and if it wasn't for the aspects that kicked his ass, then by this time, he would probably have married with Calia Menethil, and she would have been married to the Black Dragon himself. After these events, we don't hear about her, and as most of you know, the plague, it hit Lordaeron, and Arthas turned to the dark side. He eventually returned home after picking up the blade Frostmourne. After months of listening to the whispers of Ner'zhul, after becoming a Death Knight himself, he came home to claim his kingdom.
Ah, my son. You no longer need to sacrifice for your people. You no longer need to bear the weight of your crown. I've taken care of everything.
What is this? What are you doing, my son?
Succeeding you, father.
Arthas showed up, he murdered his father, but we don't know what he did with his sister. One option, the simple answer, is that he simply murdered her, but we don't have any story telling this. If you want to speculate, then there is the possibility that Calia, she went undercover and she became a member of the SI7. There's an NPC that you can find called Calia Hastings, and she can be found at Old Faramore Isle, and some speculate that this is the former princess of Lordaeron. We don't know if she survived the bombing of Faramore, since she wasn't even mentioned in the storyline, but another possibility is that she didn't move to Faramore, but instead she went to Quel'thelas. This kingdom, it belonged to Jaina's father, Admiral Proudmoore, and it was a loyal member of the Alliance of Lordaeron. Technically, Jaina could still be the ruler of Quel'thelas since her family is gone, but the entire kingdom was never added to World of Warcraft. I speculated on this before, and I think that an expansion surrounding the Naga and Azov, the island expansion, it would be a great opportunity to add this kingdom and perhaps be the return of Calia Menethil. They've actually asked your question at BlizzCon before, and to this, Blizzard said that they're thinking about it, but they don't have any real plans. Time will tell what they're going to do with Calia Menethil. Could you tell me the lore of Anasterian Sunstrider? I love your videos. Merry Christmas from Sweden, from Isaac P. Jacobson. Isaac, although a bit late, Merry Christmas to you as well. As you can see, I often store these questions for later, and this one apparently was sent in around Christmas, so there you go. To understand the story of Anasterian Sunstrider, we'll have to take a look at the history of the High Elves. A long time ago, around 10,000 years ago, during the War of the Ancients, Queen Azshara and her fellow Highborn, they tried to summon Sargeras into Azeroth. Not all of the Highborn agreed with the Queen's choices. Not all of them thought that bringing the Legion and purging the world was the best course of action. One amongst them, named Davramar Sunstrider, who's been working against his queen, he eventually helped Tyrande escape her prison, and they joined the Knight of Resistance against their queen and against the Legion. The War of the Ancients was won by the Night Elves, the invasion was prevented, and the world of Kalimdor split apart. As you might imagine, the Highborn and the rest of the Night Elves, they did not get along very well. Some amongst them did not fully believe that the Highborn were actually against their queen, and the Highborn, they were unable to stop the use of arcane magic. They saw this magic as their birthright, as powers that should be used, and they didn't stop, not even after it became punishable by death. Eventually this led to such a huge conflict that the Highborn, they decided to move away from the rest of the Night Elves, but they didn't go before they took a vial filled with water from the original Well of Eternity. This vial was filled by Illidan Stormrage, another that could not stop using arcane magic, and they took this vial because they knew that they wanted to make a new well, and during their travels they started to leave behind their original concept of a loon, they started living during the day instead of the night, they started to embrace the sun, change how they looked, and they would be known as the High Elves. Now these High Elves, they experienced the War of the Ancients, and they did learn their lessons. They knew that messing around with magic was a bad thing to do. It drew the attention of the Legion, so when they built the kingdom of Quel'thelas, and when they used the waters to create a new Sunwell, they made sure to place protective spells around their kingdom. This spell allowed them to practice their magic without drawing the attention of the Legion, but there were other threats to consider. Unfortunately for them, they built a kingdom of Quel'thelas upon sacred and ancient troll grounds, and the trolls, they did not stand for this. They attacked the High Elves, and although they outnumbered them greatly, the magic of the elves protected them. For nearly 4,000 years, the High Elves lived in relative peace, but the trolls did not give up. But this time, Dathomir Sunstriders, his great-grandson Anasterian Sunstrider, he was ruling their people, and he realized that sooner or later, the trolls would become too big of a problem to handle. The so-called troll wars were firing up, and to fight back, the king sought aid of the humans. This was in ancient times, right? This was like 6,000 years ago. So, the humans, they were still a very young race. One amongst their tribes, they still lived in tribes back then, they were called the Arafor, and they were busy uniting the clans, and even though humans didn't practice magic at the time, King Anasterian was certain that a few amongst them would be able to learn. The pact was made, human and high elf, they allied against the trolls, and 100 humans were trained in the ways of magic. Together they stood against the trolls, and they were able to deal so much damage that the troll empire would never truly recover. For saving their people, King Anasterian, he made a promise to the leader of the humans. This was Thoradin of Arafor. His bloodline would forever be connected with the high elves, and they would come to their aid if there was ever the need. As luck would have it, thousands of years later, the last in the Arafor line would need this help. His name was Anduin Lothar, and he crossed the sea to the kingdom of Lordaeron to warn them all about the first orcish invasion. King Calia Menethil, he found out about Lothar's bloodline. He sent a message to the high elves to honor their agreement. But the high elves, they only sent a token force to help. They didn't believe that the orcs would be a real threat to them. They had stood against the trolls for millennia. Surely their magic would be enough to stand against this horde. They were wrong, of course, and thankfully one amongst them, Illyria Windrunner, she knew that she had to fight for her people. Once the orcs arrived at Quel'thelas, and by this time they had dragons, they had ogres, they had even recruited trolls into the ranks, she was the one to warn them all about the real threat of the horde. The horde was at their doorstep, and the high elves, they could no longer sit back and let the humans deal with it. They now pledged their full support to the Alliance, and the Alliance, they eventually won the war against the hordes. Times of peace often weaken alliances, and over time the high elves, they believed that the humans offered them little. Anasterian stepped away from the alliance, but some amongst his people, mainly those who were connected to the Kirin Tor, they still pledged their aid whenever the alliance required it. Soon enough, the plague would hit the lands of Lordaeron. It would kill its citizens and turn them into the undead. Reports of this obviously reached the high elves as well, but again, they believed that this wasn't their problem. They did the same as they did during the first horde invasion. They left the humans to deal with it themselves, and this time their mistake would cost them dearly. The plague eventually led to the purge of Stratholme. Arthas traveled to the land of Northrend, where he found the blade Frostmourne. He became a servant to the Lich King, and he returned home. One of his first missions for the Lich King was to resurrect Kel'Thuzad, the necromancer responsible behind spreading the plague, and he was actually killed by Arthas. Faith had a sense of humor, so Arthas, he made his way to the High Elf Kingdom to use the powers of the Sunwell and complete his mission. The elves believed that their magical gates would protect them, but a betrayer from within, he told Arthas all their secrets, and Arthas succeeded in his mission.
Citizens of Silvermoon, I have given you ample opportunities to surrender, but you have stubbornly refused. Know that today, your entire race and your ancient heritage will end. Death itself has come to claim the high home of the elves. Now arise, Kel'Thuzad, and serve the Lich King once again.
Kel'Thuzad was resurrected, the powers of the Sunwell were corrupted, and the king of the High Elves, even at his old age, he still tried to prevent Arthas from doing all of this. He was no match, of course, for the might of Frostmourne. The king lost his life to the fallen prince, and his son Kil'jaeden Sunstrider, he decided that his father would be the last king of their people. They would now forevermore call themselves Blood Elves, in honor of those who had given their lives trying to defend their city and their people against Arthas and the Scourge. And that's the story of Anasterian Sunstrider in a nutshell. And this brings us to my final question already. Now in this question I'm going to speculate a little bit about the future for Warlords of Draenor, so there might be spoilers in the answer or in the question. If you're dead set on avoiding spoilers for Warlords of Draenor, then this is the time to turn off the video. And let me just say thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. At the moment, we seem to be butt-kicking the asses of the warlords. Ner'zhul, Kargoth, and soon Blackhand. They're pretty much dead, and we are left with Kil'rock and Grum from the Iron Horde. So what we know is that we're going to kill Kil'rock and Grum too, but then this would be kinda short expansion. What else can be filled in? What does Gul'dan planning? Are we going to see any bosses from our universe? It's a good question, and of course nobody can predict the future. But the warlords, they are not the only threats that's hinted at in the expansion. First and foremost, we have Gul'dan and his allegiance to the Legion. His plans, they were messed up at Garrosh, but we liberated him and he still wants more power. It's uncertain how forgiving the Legion is towards Gul'dan, but it does seem like they're still working together. For example, Sokrafar, the one we take out at Shafref, Liadrin says that we've taken out one of Gul'dan's most powerful allies. During the questing in Talador, Gul'dan takes a portal and he summons a mighty pit lord. So it seems like he and the Legion, they're still buddies and they're still working together. There's a toy that you can find called the Burning Legion's Missive, and with it you can eavesdrop on the Legion's commands. When you use it, you'll see an image of Archimonde, which will give you a random message, and amongst those is him telling Kil'jaeden that their plans failed. The time for manipulation and subtlety, that has passed, and now Archimonde is taking charge. So we have Gul'dan, whatever he might be planning, we have the Burning Legion, possibly led by Archimonde, maybe he will be teaming up with Kil'jaeden. Either way, the Legion and Gul'dan, they're still very much a threat. Then there's the Ogre Empire that still needs to unlock. You can see it at the lower left corner on the map, so we'll probably see more ogres, we'll probably see some more Titanic influences on that. And then there are the small hints here and there, but that's entirely up to Blizzard if they will pursue them or not. For example, in Spires of Arak, you can learn that Anzu, he was communicating with the gods of the Abyss, and he would find them dull, witless creatures. Who are these creatures of the Abyss? There could be old gods on Draenor. I mean, I personally sure hope not, but there definitely could be. There could be something else in the Abyss, but we don't really know what it is. All we know is that there's definitely something down there in the Abyss, and maybe this is a threat for the future. On top of that, for the Arakoa, we also have the Apexis civilization that left clues behind that they were working on a floating city in the sky. It's uncertain what happens to this civilization, it's uncertain if they finish this project, but perhaps in the future we'll actually get to visit this floating city in the sky, and perhaps we'll get more of the Arakoa storyline. You also have Cho'Gall and his pale orcs that talk about some sort of evil being that is drawing near. They're using powers of the void, and the void itself is a very vague and unexplored subject within the lore. There's a lot of room for Blizzard to develop a whole storyline behind this, some wicked evil force that we never really heard about. Perhaps they'll tie it up with some Shadow Priest lore. It could be great, but like I said, that's entirely up to Blizzard if they will pursue it. Then there's still Rephion, of course. He's also been spotted on Draenor. Who knows what he's doing? We're uncertain if he actually killed Ner'zhul in the dungeon. We're uncertain what happened to Teron'gor. We're uncertain who was behind the attack on Taylor's garrison. We might see Adal and the Tempest Keep show up. We might find out that things on Azeroth are not going well. We might... You know, if Mist of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor showed us anything, is that Blizzard can do whatever the hell they want, and time will tell what they're going to do. There's definitely still enough room for some sick storytelling. I just hope that Blizzard can deliver, because with patch 6.1 and the feedback that they got on it, I think it's time for them to deliver and be like, okay guys, 6.1, it wasn't that big, now here's 6.2 with this massive storyline, with this continent, with this, with that, you can all enjoy all of this, have fun. I really hope that that's gonna happen, because they need to do it to keep their subscriber numbers up, but time will tell what they're gonna do. I actually added another question about my opinion on 6.1, because during the streams most of you ask me what do I think about Warlords and what do I think about patch 6.1. But at this point in time, I've read so many forum topics, I've seen hour-long videos with people discussing 6.1 that I'm already fed up with it, to be honest. In short, yes, 6.1 delivered very little content, but if you count Blackrock Foundry for the 6.1 patch, then there is something to do. Did people ask for a selfie cam? No, they did not. Did they ask for a jukebox? No, they did not. There is a lot of things that Blizzard could have done better with 6.1, but I was talking about this with Fury and I think she made a fair point. 6.1 is only the beginning. There are still plenty of patches to come, and you could hear my enthusiasm about the storyline in the previous question. There is still so much that they could do with Draenor to turn this ship around, to actually make it a good expansion again. And that's not to say that the raids are not great. They are absolutely, and it's not the worst expansion ever. But they do need to start to deliver. They've been able to increase their subscriber numbers to 10 million again, especially with the level 90 boost, with the whole hype going on behind it. But those people won't stick around if they only AFK in their garrison. So I think Blizzard needs to step up their game with the 6.1, but on the other hand, there is still a lot of potential. And in the end, if you truly don't enjoy the game, stop tormenting yourself, stop spending money on something that you don't enjoy, and just stop playing for a little while. Truth be told, if I didn't make these lore videos, if I didn't make these kind of Q&As and whatnot, I would have stopped playing as well, and I would have returned when WoW is fun again. There's nothing wrong with taking minor breaks in between, but, you know, that's just my opinion on the case. I wanted to keep it short. You'll have your opinion, and that's perfectly fine. This does, however, bring us to the end of the Q&A, so thank you all once again for your questions and your time. If you have questions of your own that you'd like to see answered in the next video, you can always leave them down below in the comment section. You can always send them in over at ask.fm, and I might use them in the next video. If you want to check out the questions that are already answered, then there's a link in the description, which will take you to the full list of all the questions I've done before, and you might find the answer that you're looking for. Thank you once again, everyone. I hope you all have a great week with lots of fun. Subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time, guys, see ya!